Hi y'all, Craig Walker here from Subtle Energy Mechanics. Welcome to my page, or welcome back if you've been here before. Today's recording is of a conversation I had recently with somebody who's been a client of mine, and the conversation started out just being her sharing some of her experience working with me, and then it turned into this great, much longer conversation around her own path and her own path and healing. And she's an MD, a medical doctor who was working in ICU and in the hospital setting, and has transitioned completely out of that setting and is now working one-on-one with clients and combining much more maybe a holistic approach. So I'm gonna read this intro, excuse me, of hers, and then hand you right into the recording. So, all right, so here she goes. So Dr. Shannon Haliko is a medical doctor who's been practicing Western medicine since 2008. And during her training, she wasn't satisfied with the tools she had learned, and she started pursuing other modalities to help her patients. Her search became even more important as she herself experienced increasing fatigue and digestive issues that were not improved with her own medical care. From these needs, she explored many fields for healing tools, including TCM, Ayurvedic, and plant medicines, yogic breathing techniques through Soma breath, whole plant-based and living foods, water, and modified forms of fasting. She found such power in these alternative tools that she started her own telemedicine practice focused on digestive health in 2020. She serves clients one-on-one in breathwork classes and wellness weekend retreats. And when she isn't serving clients in her business, hosting a weekend wellness retreat or breathwork class, she can be found tending her indoor and outdoor plants or enjoying the outdoors hiking and camping. So that's a little bit about Dr. Shannon Haliko, and I'll hand you right over to the interview now. All right.
My treasure of working in the ICU was working with others and working in that capacity, although it was like a lot of adrenaline, which wasn't exactly what most of me wanted. There was a part of me who likes coffee and, chemically enjoys adrenaline.
Yes.
But most of me did not want those situations. However, the jewel of it was this experience that I can also achieve with other people. So I guess to say and this is where I think my body is wiser than I am.
Yeah, I gotta buy some more. Oh, I got some purple ones. Those are cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so you were just sharing with me. Yeah, we've been working together for what, 4 or 5 times, and maybe just share with me what you just shared about what it was like before and what you're noticing now.
Yeah. So I'd say there's been increased conversation with my breath. And in the past, I struggled a lot to have any instruction of following the breath or allowing yourself to be breathed, and not intervening at all, and finding myself controlling the entire breath anytime I put my attention there. And through both the practice that we've been doing together and some of the instructions that you've given me around where to place my attention more generally or behind me, as a viewer of the situation, those have really helped to begin to ungrip my fingers from the steering wheel of breathing. And it's definitely still a practice for me, but I feel the unraveling.
Said something about joy or heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had increased spontaneous emotions. And one of the areas that I have often felt different from other humans is I haven't felt joy or love in my chest, or that warm, fuzzy feeling people talk about. And I thought, I was like, well, maybe I just don't have that, expression of love in my body as a sensation. but since our work together, it's been spontaneously arising in times that you would expect it to. And so um, it's a celebration that I'm actually human. And I do have feelings of love and joy occurring now in my body.
Nice. Welcome back. And
Thank
you're
you.
saying, what was it like before? You said like some kind of like coolness running through your veins or something?
Yeah, I had joined a meditation group, specific practice, and one of their instructions was to feel love as a sensation inside your body. And most people would say they feel it in the chest in some sort of warmth or expansion. And I'm like, no, I just feel it like icy coldness running through my veins. And while I'm saying that, I can feel it right now, like it brings it up.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't feel warm, fuzzy in my chest.
Yeah. And and you've been living this way, and you were just telling me that like you're a doctor when you're working in the ER, somehow like taking over traumas, like people would choose you because you're just so calm and collected
Yes.
on the outside.
Yeah, ICU work. And so we would go all over the hospital if there was any sort of code blue. And it's a state of an emergency. So you have to jump in and act quickly. And all of my colleagues would tell me, I love doing codes with you. You don't yell and you're so calm. And the whole room quiets down so we can just get our work done. And I was like, but inside, I'm very, very scared.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you like, I know my version of that is, like I can just look, calm and like if it all put it together. And then the idea is that I'm through and through like that, but on the inside might be just gripping the heck out of somewhere, but I've fragmented or I've truncated that off or stuck it somewhere.
It's interesting when I walk in there or on my way there, and I don't run because that just makes it worse. And everyone's capable of starting things without me. So when I arrive, there is that gripping internally and stiffness. But as soon as I plug into the feet, I don't know, the field or the people that I see what's happening, there's some level of comfort with this is the situation. Um, then there becomes this flow.
Yeah.
And it's not that I think there is some compartmentalization of the tension because it's not like it went away, but that the focus of my attention then is on this instead of inside.
Right. Because I get what you're saying about the flow state, and at least for me, when I was working in the trauma center, like it was almost the anticipation of knowing what could come through the door had me gripped more.
Oh yeah, that's why I can't do ER. 'Cause you
Yeah.
never know what's coming through the door. At least in the ICU and the hospital floors, you have 10 things more or less that can
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, right. And it's that the kind of that anticipation that you said for me, like your description of and what you're like up until you walk in and you see what the situation is and you get in a flow state, that so many of the hours are pre-flow state. You're in anticipation.
Yeah. And on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. Yeah. And does that seem to be kind of what's affecting your the breathing, or the what you were saying is like gripping on the steering wheel of the breathing?
Yeah. And I would say I've had life events that have increased that rather than decreased it.
Right. And that's then affected likely your thinking that you were not human and not actually having an open heart and
Yeah.
joy, and then what energy.
Yeah. Physical energy has been draining, but since working with you has been increasing. And I was mentioning that it was both physically and mentally, and not just the amount of thoughts, but the quality and clarity of the thoughts and the ability to. One of the things that's been most apparent to me over time and has been correcting since we've been working together is the ability to hold a wide view of information, like to give a deep detail, working on my business and refining my niche or refining my offer. You need kind of like a bigger lens, to, wide lens to really capture what is it I'm trying to say in a small statement or in a line by line offer. And in the past, I would struggle a lot to open up enough to hold all those pieces of information together.
Yeah, I like that you're, because you mentioned just kind of the safety in the space, which allows that being breathed. And what I've talked about on some of my videos, the koshas, like breaking some of this experience down, that there's actually energetic frequencies that run through the body and specifically through the spinal cord. And much of this work is how do you trauma or scary situations tend to take those and split them apart. So there's no safety. You don't feel safe with emotions. You don't feel safe with thoughts. Like you're living, as you said, and like, I'm not really an emotional person, or my thoughts aren't able to, they don't feel, I can't slow down enough to allow the thoughts to be smooth and or slow or one after the next, and creative enough to hold uh, the breadth of information, as you were saying. Like you're creating a program and an offer, and for your business, where you have to feel safe, and you've got to feel that immediate emotional response, like, yeah, this is it, while the thoughts are integrating, you can feel safe while you're thinking and while you're sitting and while you're feeling, and then while you're even looking at big picture, like, where do I want this to go? What do I want this to look like in 5 and 10 years? And be able to work back, because that's the fourth coach. That's the bigger picture,
Mm,
kind of a different vibration, and being able to go from that down into the nuts and bolts thinking, and not getting overwhelmed by that nuts and bolts thinking, and not getting overwhelmed
mm.
by emotional flow, but actually having it open and close, and having that breath, the slow motion being breathed experience that moves through that spinal cord while you're shifting between all those layers.
Yeah.
It's
And
very,
that reminds me, I've always had cues from my body towards, oh, yes, move towards this. No, don't move toward that. And the relationship I have with that dialogue has really changed in the last maybe month, and really accelerated in the last 2 weeks. And so much so, if you would call it a relationship, I told my mentor, in that relationship, I'm in Paris with this, with this body, this dialogue. We're going steady. It's a conversation all day, and it's not just I'm trying to placate the body and give it what it needs so that I can go back and do what I need to do. It's actually a partner in my life, in my day, and not just for important decisions, but all the decisions, all the general movement through the day. And it's a bit hard to describe that. That's what I've been noticing.
I resonate with, like, do I need to check in with my body right now? No, I'm off busy doing things.
Mm-hmm.
My version of disconnection is go up into my head, live in the
Mm-hmm.
concepts, live in the, sort of disconnect from what's happening down here. So I don't have to feel and then take responsibility for all the things. Um,
But if you don't, they come and bite you.
over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pull the plug. Yeah. Yeah. It was,
For your own good, for your highest good.
that sounds like a doctor who's seen this over and over and over again.
Oh, yes. Now I can say my body is my greatest. So I went from my body is my adversary. Like, why are you doing this to me? Can't we just, get on the same page? And I went to making a promise, like, gosh, that was 6 years ago now, to my body. Okay, I'm going to listen to you. I don't know what you're saying. I have no idea, but I know you're screaming at me. To partnership of like, okay, I'm going to check in with you. What do you need today? What are your requirements? But still treating it like a child, to today, this relationship. And I've even called it my teacher, because I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been using negative reinforcement to like guide me to this point. I would be living a life that was not totally aligned, and wouldn't be exploring the things that are now bringing me joy. So it's been a teacher for sure.
Yeah, and just being a doctor, right? That has that you're walking along with this relationship. I love that you stated that, like, you're in relationship with your body. And I gotta, yeah, resonate so much with, like, yeah. So then when you start listening to it, it's still like, what kind of what kind of character or status do you give the body and its information? You
Yeah.
know, like mechanism. So there is no wisdom that would come from a mechanism.
Yeah.
Always
I
spontaneous.
didn't say I was all the way there. I'm just saying I felt it.
Well, and that
And
could,
as someone who feels life through the body first, as a, and I don't know if you follow Enneagram work, but my instinct is sexual, and my number is 1. So I feel through the body, and I want to go towards the things that I'm like, ooh, that feels good. Let's do more of that. But having truncated that for most of my life for various mental reasons, safety reasons, it's been a road to reclaim that conversation.
and the ones like to be leaders, right? They like to be, is
It
that
likes to fix things
okay? Oh,
and
okay.
make
So,
them right,
okay.
our
Am I
version of right.
familiar with Richard Rohr?
I love him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's one of the first people I came across speaking about the Enneagram, and just loved his descriptions. And I think he's a 1. Isn't that right?
Yeah, he's the one.
Yeah.
And I'm learning a lot from him.
Yeah. I've got my little collection of 1s that
Yeah.
uh, I enjoyed listening to. Um, yeah, I thought I was a 7 forever, and then now one of my clients is like, "No, you're an 8, or maybe an 8-wing 7." So then I've had to dive back into the information, and I don't know, but it's it's fun looking around in there in that map.
Yeah, I think even more than the number, although with Richard Rohr's explanation, I really felt, and I love that he comes at it from a spiritual, standpoint, like your spiritual wound, because that speaks a lot to my struggle with correctness. But even more than that was identifying with him saying these 3 experience life through the body. I was like, yes. Especially when I'm not having that warm, fuzzy feeling in my chest.
Yeah.
He said, life is just a body blow for these 3 kinds of people. And I'm like, yes.
Interesting. It's a body blow. What are
Yeah.
those 3 numbers? The 1.
9, 1, 2.
Okay.
Sorry. No, 8, 9, 8, 9, 1. And then it's 2, 3, 4 are heart centered or emotion based. And 5, 6, 7 are mind. I don't know. I feel like you might be a 7 from the little I know.
Okay. Well, yeah. Um, all right. Well, I'll have to look back in there. So it's 7-wing 8, 8-wing 7. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's nice to see our efforts, our service come to life.
Mm. Yeah. 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 And yeah. And just being able to be, I heard, I was actually listening to I think his name's James Hollis. Hollis is a PhD, went back to like Jungian analyst, and he was on an Andrew Huberman interview the other day, and I was loving what he was saying, and he was talking about some people getting into the healing professions, whether it's doctor or therapist or something, as a way to, like, they recognize something's wrong, something's off, something needs to be fixed, and that then getting into the healing profession as a way to control the environment, and then so you control the environment and you draw from it. Then you're drawing from it, and that really struck a chord with me. And I have to, I'm going to be chewing on this one for a while. But looking back at, you look at the topic of complex PTSD, and that being, the day in and day out experiencing people, but not at a depth that your body requires to just sit and feel and be breathed. We were talking about being breathed, but then being in a space where it's so calm and relaxed and natural that everybody in the conversation is being breathed. So I feel like that's actually some of the reward that I get from, the work. But then I have to be careful that I'm not, not then working and then building my, my network of personal relationships just based on, because out goes boundaries. Right. So.
Well, and also, like I have waded in these waters as well, and kind of the thought experiment of how much is my business, a need for me to fix this wound of not having what I needed when I was going through my healing journey, and like fixing the world of that problem. And on the one hand, yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment. Like, you want to serve and you want to improve the world, but on the shadow side is the fixing.
Yeah.
And I made peace with that about a month ago. And yeah, I mean, the fact that I noticed those two parts of it, I think is the biggest thing to navigating what our ego wants to do with any project.
Yeah. Yeah. And what kind of agreement are we getting into with the, somebody else in terms of fixing, fixing a problem, a diagnosis, and a treatment of a problem, as opposed to, can we just, it's almost, is there a way that we can be in, with I talked about that, the Ken Wilber's 4-quadrant model, like me as a separate and you as a separate, then the things that would then keep us not safe in our communications would be something that would be diagnosable and then removable or fixable. But if we look at the physiology, when it's working properly, that's the component of us that's we, that is in non-dual, then there's no fixing to be done. Where was I going with that? But practicing in the like finding the place where we're just being, and that builds that opportunity for the third. I think in the psychoanalytic world, the intersubjective third, and that's where that other or mystical thing comes through, that seems to produce the, oh, my heart's actually feeling open and joy is spontaneously coming up, and that's I like that.
Yeah, because that's, I don't want to say magic, but one of the lenses I use is the dance of life, when you catch glimpses of that. So that energy, that third, what movement experience,
Yeah,
is the ability to see it in our awareness.
you do want to name it something like magic, because it's not something we can mechanically produce.
Yeah.
But then at the peril of making it sound rare, and that you've got to do a whole bunch of tomfoolery to entice the magic, where it's actually by design. When we come together in a particular kind of relaxed way, it shows too.
Sounds like a technology because there are requirements.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Like
actually,
some would say chanting is a technology.
yeah, I think that's right. I remember when my teacher was started calling it a technology. I was like, but it took me a while to chew on that. But like the yogic koshas, the koshas and the nadis and the bandhas, there's when you get your focus and your posture aligned in such a way. And well, you were talking earlier about having the floodlight or the peripheral focus and the specific the you got the floodlight and the spotlight. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's two parts of the focus. When you're working both of those together, um, that's a particular technology. You know, just like seeing is a technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the analogy of the those magic posters, the stereograms that look like squiggly lines, and that somehow they're actually made with the technology to match your eyes. Where you know when you look through, and first time I saw that, I was like, oh, there's actually something really there's something in this that felt like a spiritual like, yes,
Me
this,
too.
yeah, you too. You said,
Yeah. I was like, what?
yeah, yeah,
Because there's some movement that we do inside that's not visible. Well, maybe it is to someone watching our eyes. I don't know. But I feel the same about awareness. And yeah, oh, I will just call it awareness.
yeah.
There's some movement.
Your body enters the scene like in that three-dimension that stereogram when it opens up, it's like you're pulled into the container, the scene that's embedded, that's secretly
Yeah.
embedded in the medium. And that was like, oh yeah, that happens everywhere. There's a way to see. And in my there's a I have a whole semester on that in my online training where I'm teaching people this work, is that it's the seeing semester. Like there's a way that you can see, and when you're playing with the technology of your own sight, playing with your sight and your breath and your posture, you're actually playing with all of these, basically developing your synesthesia, your synesthetic capacity. That's kind of almost the technology that brings that third through, and it comes through
Mm.
both of you at the same time. Like you could you the yeah, the other person you're with, whether they're a client or a lover or a friend, like that playing with that technology of the container of two or more gathered in my name. Like whoever's saying that, my name, that's what.
This would explain why I've had experiences with others. Generally, it's either hiking or the only time I've been sitting has definitely when I've been like sitting in a good posture. And then one friend, the way her seats are around her table, it just encourages good posture. And then I'll say things and I'm like, wow, I said that. I should write that down. It doesn't even feel like I personally said it, but it was what was naturally natural to be said.
That takes me right to I was working with about 10 long time psychedelic facilitators, like that they had been guides for others. In a group with them about a year or so ago, and I had that experience where I was sitting, and it was like on day 2 or day 3, where you know each other and you're feeling comfortable, that the mask has dropped, and you're feeling the words coming out of each other's mouths and realizing, oh, this my aha to kind of mirror your experience was, whatever it is, the insight is speaking through all of us, and the insight is an independent intelligence that's picking the person whose history and orientation to the world is best suited to speak this truth. So I will hear the truth I need to hear better from your mouth right now than mine, for whatever reason, right? And then so there's like this popcorn that the insights are bubbling through. Is like, oh, this is amazing. You know, like we were in the presence of whatever it is that's doing us. And yeah, and then yeah, I get these like, oh, it says that in the Bible too, or these other mystical books, like, oh, this is what they're talking about. You know,
Yeah.
sitting in
It makes
that.
me think of the hollow reed though. And especially when you're doing that movement. And that was it's not just in the Bible, but I think other traditions have the same, what would you call it? Analogy,
Yeah.
metaphor.
Object.
And I struggled with it for a long time because my version of God was paternalistic. Like that's, what I grew up with. And what I saw around me wasn't loving. So I was like, well, and I wasn't feeling anything. So I didn't feel connected. So I'm like, well, this doesn't sound very good to me. Why would I want to be a hollow reed for something that is just going to use me? And so after deconstructing that one day, I realized I'm the only reed or flute or instrument that can be played in the Shannon way. And to be played in the Shannon way is the most beautiful music it could ever play, and is beautiful to me, and is not being, it is being of use, but it's not being used. So it's like a win-win, not a just you are going to do my work. It
Yeah.
is you will experience this music, and it will be the best music you ever want to hear, and it will be the right music for your body, your expression. And when I finally like put that all together, I was like, I'm ready to be played.
Yeah.
And I realized there are things I can do, technologies I can learn to make sure I'm hollow,
Hmm.
to allow those messages, those feelings, those insights to come through. Like I feel like that's my work. It's clear the read.
Clear the read. Yeah. And interesting that and correct me if I'm wrong here, that years ago when the body was nothing more than a mechanical, stack of uh, habitual feedback loops, like it can only so it wasn't alive and it wasn't intelligence and it certainly wasn't a spiritual tube or fluid.
No shishumna there.
No, exactly. The only chance, like if it's like a car, like they kind of teach us in medical school, then there's only one driver, right? And so it's either me or it's God. And if it's God, then like what's the point of
Where am
me?
I? In
Yeah,
the back
yeah,
seat, in the trunk,
right,
tied up.
right. The ego is bad. Then yeah, then it's still good, bad. It's still status. Um, and then if it gains, like then forget it's like okay, so no, maybe you are alive, but you're still less intelligent. You're still like wild animal. So then you're child. So
Mm,
still no opportunity for there to be a divine intelligence to move through because it's still less, the body's still less than, so it doesn't make
yeah.
sense this would be coming up through here. So it seems does it, I mean, maybe did it parallel with this becoming more and more and more wise to be listened to,
Yeah,
not to
I
have the
would say
external
so.
God, but to listen in.
Yeah. And that the in, so that a couple years ago came across the concept of panentheism. So that
Oh,
there's, you
yeah.
know, God in everything, including myself. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes more sense slash feels better to take on as a worldview than, out there, or omnipotent and omni-controlling, and judging. Um, so once there was that shift, then the body was included and I was included. And so doing the work internally made much more sense to that, in that worldview. Instead, especially in more than the, even though there was some fixing in there, like I'm gonna fix myself so clear, but I think especially lately, it's been a process of allowing a natural unfolding and knowing that I can't hurry anything, or there's no destination, those kinds of things.
So it feels like you were doing a version of that already, like when you would walk into the ICU or into a code and you would move into that flow state, like you're allowing that, like that, you're allowing that intelligence to come through, but maybe we misname it, or we still attribute that to some kind of internal, still that by, by the old definition, we're all separate in there. And as I recall from other work environments, like when I led wilderness therapy groups, like the synergy between the other team members and me, I could make or break the entire week. And it seemed to be, I mean, there's like technology there to help like the team. So I guess where's my inquiries, like, do you still work in that setting, or you kind of jumped it?
So my body was like, forget this. We're going to make sure you don't go back. It let me do the toe in, toe out, or like, that two boats together and then slowly going apart.
Got it. So
Then
it
you
gave you a
can't,
little bit of, transition time.
but I still tried to keep going as long as it possibly would let me until I couldn't anymore. And it's just like, fine, okay. So after my Hawaii assignment, I had a nice Hawaii assignment for 6 months. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna not go back to the ICU. And I was still like, I'll go back if I need to.
Right.
But it became clear that there's no going back. Like,
Yeah.
there might be barista job in the future for me, but
So there's really no going back.
no, there's not. I've committed. Yeah. But to go back to what I was assigning to that action in the ICU, in the codes, I knew I wasn't doing it, but I never told anybody about it. And it just worked. So I was like, I guess I filed it under intuition.
Yeah.
Or flow state.
Yeah.
Or some combination of that. But I knew it was definitely outside of following the protocol. It wasn't, there was no spotlight control on it. And if anytime I tried to do it, that would bring back that stiffness.
Right. Yeah, which is your flute telling you that something's off on the inside. So maybe my assumption that there was, like when I think when I was first telling the story at the beginning, where you were going in, and that people liked how calm you were, and that maybe my assumption that it was all a mask, like maybe that's actually not true at all, that you were actually connecting in flow state and letting that third coming through, and the healing, like you intuitively knew, but maybe some of that internal gripping was still showing that there were beliefs or behaviors in your own life that were not congruent with maybe an accurate story of what's actually happening. Like you still believed that this thing was a mechanism, and so you didn't really know how, and you didn't put, the only way that God could, the only narrative you'd heard was that God was paternal, external things. So that can't be moving me. So there's some kind of, you didn't have a full, or as clear of a.
Yeah. And that was like one of the jewels in the box of teamwork that was my treasure of working in the ICU, was working with others. And working in that capacity, although it was like a lot of adrenaline, which wasn't exactly what most of me wanted. There was a part of me who likes coffee and, chemically enjoys adrenaline.
Yes.
But most of me did not want those situations. However, the jewel of it was this experience that I can also achieve with other people. So I guess to say and this is where I think my body is wiser than I am. And is as I'm moving into relationship, I'm understanding more of it and not seeing that it's always been there. And like I said, when I would be hiking or in deep conversations with friends, this third would show up. And that wasn't new in my journey. It had always been there, but I became more aware of it, more accepting. One of my YouTube spiritual teachers, who I love, talks about the masculine, feminine, and then the child that shows up when you have them in balance.
Mm.
So it just makes me think of that as another lens on the technology of what is happening
Oh,
here.
I like that. Yeah, that works really well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yay for YouTube spiritual teachers.
Yeah. You know, like you were saying, where the information that I need to hear may come from this other mouth.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere after college, I was like, you know what? I trust enough this discernment to not just blanket, oh, all of these people don't know what they're talking about.
Yes.
I became more curious and I felt more confident in this sounds true to me. I want to learn more about that. This does not, I don't trust it, you know.
Yeah, discernment. And it just makes me think of like one of my teachers, YouTube teachers, Nadia Bolz-Weber. It's a Unitarian minister out of like Denver, and it kind of has a real incredible life story about how she got there. She's like 6 foot something, tattooed, and
Oh,
like
wow.
F bomb dropping. I was like, I like this woman. She's like a real so yeah, she said, I am the reason they have bishops. Because I need some serious steering. So anybody that resonates at all with that, look up Nadia Bolz-Weber. She's got
Okay.
some good books, and fun YouTube spiritual teachers.
Oh, yeah. I gotta love them. And there's I think an arc, right? Or not an arc, but a natural progression. Because I have people that I found very intriguing and interesting before that I grew out of.
Yeah,
Like you grow out of a therapist, you know,
yeah.
and you're like, I think I'm graduated from this perspective now, and I need a bigger perspective.
Or you cycle back around and read through, like we've got all the books that have. I like that my son listens to all his books on audio. I'm like, man, I outline everything. Like I'll just
Yeah,
outline, highlight, then I buy those little colored flapper thingies that that a good book is just like has these colored bookmarks all the way through.
nice.
And I won't pick it up, and then I'll pick it up again. It's like, oh, and it's almost like a well, I don't know if it's a breadcrumb trail of proof to myself that I'm evolving at all, but what used to resonate with me still resonates with me. Maybe it's either I'm evolving or I haven't completely lost myself. So
Nice.
yeah, there's fun. Well, we could now transition to the next part of our of our call, which we won't do on recording. But thanks so much for this conversation. It was awesome, spontaneous, and we talked about it.
Yeah,
It's worked out.
you're welcome. Thank you.